Hey guys, welcome to Relatable. Happy Thursday. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Good Ranchers. That's goodranchers.com/Allie, goodranchers.com/Allie. Okay, today we are talking to our friend Steve Deace, one of your favorite guests that we interview because his insight is always so incisive. It's so on point and it's so unique. It's so original as well. So we're going to talk to him about Hunter Biden, how this fits into everything that is going on in the world, really, and how it fits into what is going on in America politically, but also he's going to take us to a theological place, as he often does, and why this matters to society, especially to the church, and how we should be combating just like the moral rot that we have in our culture and specifically in our political class. And so we'll be discussing all of that with him, but I do just kind of want to give a little bit of context about all of this. If you don't know, like all of the video footage that has leaked with Hunter Biden, I'm going to tell you about that. But also, if you're watching on YouTube and I'm wearing the exact and you see that I'm wearing the exact thing that I was wearing yesterday, I did not sleep here at the studio. I did go home. It's not a new day. I just happened to be recording both of the episodes, Wednesdays and Thursdays episode, on the same day. And I just didn't have time to turn around and change. So just wanted to get that out there. All right, let me tell you what's going on with Hunter Biden. If you are not someone who is super on Twitter, which a lot of my audience really isn't, you're more Instagram people, or you're not on social media at all, and you really do rely on me to tell you what's going on. Sometimes I have the terrible task of showing you and talking about like really dark and disturbing things, and this is one of them. Like, I know it's kind of entertaining. People laugh at Hunter Biden because he is, for lack of a better term, like a crackhead. And people say, oh, like he's so messed up and this is so terrible, but it's actually really sad. So let me tell you what's going on. Let me back up. This is according to Vice News, which is obviously not a conservative publication. And so we can trust that they're probably trying to explain this as softly as they possibly can. So in 2020, Hunter Biden left a laptop at a repair shop in Delaware, the contents of which were taken by the store owner and shared with conservative media outlets. Then this past weekend, someone hacked into Hunter's iCloud backup and leaked the files to the public. So there are all of these videos with him like weighing cocaine and talking to prostitutes, naked videos of him with these young prostitutes. There were also text messages leaked. There are a lot of questions that people have about that. Like, why is his dad's name, Joe Biden's name, saved in his phone apparently as Pedo Pete? That's really disgusting, really disturbing. A lot of questions surrounding that, especially as people have pointed out the fact that Biden seems to be particularly touchy, like with young girls and young kids that he's around, whether it's like for a photo op or whether it's for some kind of like meeting with a family. He has this habit of like putting his hands on kids' shoulders and getting really close to their ear with his mouth and like sniffing their hair. And maybe it's, you know, something that has become a meme and is funny, but it's kind of not funny. Now, I'm not saying that he is a pedophile. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying at the very least it's creepy and it's weird that his name is Pedo Pete in his son's phone. He also called Jill Biden apparently the C word. This is according to the Washington Examiner. The contents of Hunter Biden's iPhone XS appear to have been posted by users of the 4chan community. 4chan, I don't even know how to describe 4chan. It's like, I don't know, like a community forum online that's like on the dark web. It's not like it's not like a social media website. I don't even know exactly how to describe it. But anyway, so apparently they somehow like hacked it. They leaked it, who shared screenshots on the website's main political forum late Saturday night. Many of the materials posted by 4chan users match the contents the Washington Examiner previously found on a password-protected iPhone XS backup located on a copy of Hunter's abandoned laptop. Konstantinos Dimitrilos, a former Secret Service agent turned cyber forensics expert, located the password to the iPhone backup during his examination of the hard drive. Oh my gosh, wow. Dimitrilos previously told the Washington Examiner that the data found within the password-protected iPhone backup is indisputably authentic. Based on my analysis of the iPhone, I conclude the same results as my analysis of the MacBook Pro laptop hard drive and iCloud synced data. The person who owns and operates this iPhone XS is Robert Hunter Biden. So obviously that is Joe Biden's son. The 52-year-old was present at the Medal of Freedom ceremony at the White House last week. His wife, Melissa Cohen was with him. Now he is according to the New York Post, under investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware for alleged tax fraud and money laundering related to his international business interests. And that's part of what we're going to talk to Steve about, his interest in Ukraine and in China, and how the policy positions and some of the things that Joe Biden has been doing, not just as president, but also as vice president, seem to be connected with that. And also, apparently, this is according to the Daily Wire, he could face federal charges related to prostitution. The New York Post is talking about how these ongoing scandals are a national security threat. Texts from Hunter Biden's iPhone appear to reveal that he wrote checks to escorts provided by Mariva, whose website touted a, quote, girlfriend experience with prostitutes as young as 20. The FBI has reportedly had the information for 2.5 years, while Hunter Biden remains under investigation for his business dealings in Kazakhstan, China, and Ukraine. I mean, this, if you can't tell, this is a whole huge mess. So just to kind of give you a picture of what I'm talking about here when it comes to the behavior that is now public by the President of the United States' son, like, here are a couple of videos of that.
So I just weighed out the bag. It's 2.06.
2.07 without the bag.
So how long is
2.0. Anything hurt on you? Anything? I was literally saying, I'm sorry that it took so long to give you $10,000. Do you have any bruise? Anything? Have I ever touched you in a bad way? Ever? Have I asked you every time if I could touch you? Every time. Sweetheart, look at me. You cannot talk to me that way and say things like that. Because I'm more respectful than anyone you've ever met. Are you okay?
So, yeah, I mean, really sad, really dark stuff. But it's not just sad, like, it is frightening because of how foreign agents and foreign countries our enemies, can use this. And, like, what is Joe Biden's part in all of this? This is not just like a derelict son. This is a son whose business dealings also have been interconnected with, like, America's political life because of his father. And so it's just, it's absolutely awful. And then you have the whole thing that we haven't even talked about yet, which is Hunter Biden's daughter and her diary, which was, I think, originally found somehow by Project Veritas and James O'Keefe. Then the FBI raided James O'Keefe because of that. But I mean, there were really weird depictions by Ashley Biden in this diary about, like, taking showers with her dad when she was way too old. Really troubling. I mean, this family, you can say what you want about Donald Trump, okay? Say what you want about Donald Trump. But all of his children, all of his adult children, lead, from what we can see, like, very normal lives that are very supportive of their dad. You can talk about, okay, he's been married 3 times and he doesn't have the kind of morality that we want in our leaders. But the same people who point fingers at Donald Trump for that have nothing to say about the dereliction of duty that is clearly on display, probably on display, when it comes to Joe Biden as a parent and certainly as a politician who is supposed to be protecting the interests of the United States. Oh, it's a whole big mess. But per usual, Steve Deace makes sense of it for us. He kind of wades through the chaos and he calls us to clarity and courage. Before we get into that conversation, let me tell you about our next sponsor, and that is Birch Gold. So when your nation's supposed authority on economic policy completely misses the flashing red lights of impending inflation, that is Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, when she said there have been unanticipated and large shocks to the economy that have boosted energy and food prices. Oh, she never saw this coming. That's a huge problem. That's a huge problem when the person who is supposed to be in charge of all of this economic stuff has no idea what's going on. You know who understood the real threat of inflation? People who invested in gold and silver with Birch Gold Group. They're protecting their savings from a highly turbulent economy by diversifying their 401k or IRA into gold, physical gold. It's not too late for you to do the same. Text Allie to 989-898. Get a free info kit. That's Allie to 989-898. Claim your free no obligation info kit on protecting your savings with gold. Allie to 989-898. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. So on this show, we really haven't talked about the Hunter Biden laptop. And now more video footage has been released online. There have been text messages that have been released. From everything that I've seen, it is really sad and really gut-wrenching. Can you tell me how this happened? What is the content and why does it matter?
So on our show, we have barely discussed this entire time. I could care less about the soap opera aspect of all of this. I'm not really into the low-lying fruit, chuckle hut, clicky, baity stuff, which is probably why I'm not more popular, because a lot of people frankly are. But I actually want to talk about things of substance that matter, and most of those things do not, and have no bearing really whatsoever outside of quote unquote owning the libs on our lives or the lives of our listeners, viewers on any level. This story does, Allie, and that's why I spent a good deal of time talking about it this week, because this is, in my opinion, this would rank among the worst national security breaches and risks in American history. I'm talking Rosenberg's level kind of stuff. You have to consider the time period when these videos and these sorts of things were taking place. We're talking when his father was vice president of the United States. So just to put this in perspective, at the same time that they were crafting a narrative that Donald Trump was beholden to Vladimir Putin because he had engaged in water sports with Putin's prostitutes, and therefore Putin had blackmail material on Trump and got him to run in order to infiltrate the American political system and steal the election as a Russian.
PP tape thing,
yes,
in case people didn't pick up on that Democrats were pushing at the time.
Correct. At the same time they were alleging that Trump was embroiled in this, Hunter Biden was actually doing this, right, and then cataloging it,
right,
and putting it on his cloud and putting faces of prostitutes. I'm not, I don't live in this world, but just out of curiosity, because I went and Googled the other day what it would take if I wanted to acquire access to like a high level celebrity class escort / prostitute. And just here in the United States, let alone in a foreign country. Almost all, so I found a couple of seedy articles at places like Vox and places like that. You have to give them your personal identification, multiple references. These women, I mean, this isn't the woman who ran away from home with a drug habit and she's on a street corner. These are young, smart, intelligent women. They're putting themselves through nursing school. They're making $10,000, $15,000 a night doing this, and they want to make sure they're safe. And so your personal information is known. And that's to engage in this at the level Hunter Biden was here domestically. What do you think goes on to do it globally? What do you think the odds are that utilizing one of these human trafficking rings, prostitution rings from Vladimir Putin is just nothing but him collecting blackmail data on its subjects via his own oligarchs? Of course it is. And Hunter Biden had a rewards card at these places. He had frequented them for years. The two countries where most of his business dealings have taken place, his most lucrative ones, Ukraine and China. Have they been in the news at all, the last few years? Of they hold any geopolitical strategic significance whatsoever? And that's why I don't believe that this was a quote 4chan leak. It just so happens that this information leaks the same day, Allie, that the New York Times decides after 3 years of dementia episodes, including this morning, saying that he wants to continue to honor the Holocaust. Okay. After 3 years of this, they now suddenly want to discuss Biden's fitness for office. If you had posted anything about the leak from his laptop prior to the 2020 election, Twitter would have locked your account And yet Twitter is allowing all of the most salacious and seedy videos you could imagine. Literally the first son smoking crack. You can share these videos. He is smoking crack and getting oral sex from prostitutes. You can share these videos all over Twitter now, but you could not share his laptop before the election. All the same people are still in charge. Why? Because it's very clear that this stuff now is coming out because they're getting ready to kick the Bidens to the curb. They've outworn their usefulness. They've outlived their usefulness, and they're going to move on the other side now, and they're just beginning to grease the skids for this. But all these years before this stuff came out, who knows how it was used by our enemies? And who knows now? I think you have to consider every decision that this White House has made that has made no sense. You know, my producer Aaron made a point on the show the other day, Allie. How is it possible you're wrong on everything? Like on everything. Like something should have gone right somewhere. Yeah. And that prompted me to ask this question. If Joe Biden were an agent of the Chinese government, what would he have done differently so far? The answer is nothing. He'd have done nothing differently. Right. And all these questions come into play when the president and former vice president's son has now cataloged years worth of blackmail material for our enemies.
Yes. And one of those things that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you are serving the interests of China is selling the barrels of oil from our strategic petroleum reserve to a Chinese gas giant that is also linked to Hunter Biden, right?
Correct. Yes, this all now begins to make sense literally right before you and I started this conversation. So Russia had already cut off 50% of Germany's natural gas supply. Trump tried to warn these people at that EU conference where they all surround him and Abe from Japan, all the globalists do, right? You've seen that infamous photo and Trump's just kind of sitting here like that. You know the photo I'm talking about, right? Yeah. It was at that event that Trump warned them that Putin had them, frankly, by the short and curlies. They were way too, the Russian agent warned them that they were way too vulnerable to Vladimir Putin, and they better invest in fracking and find some other path to natural gas because he could shut the spigot off at any second. Well, a week and a half ago, Putin shut off 50% of Germany's natural gas supply and France's. This isn't Luxembourg. This isn't Latvia. France and Germany. He cut off half their natural gas supply, and literally 5 minutes before you and I began this conversation, Russia notified Germany via the Nord Stream pipeline that Biden funded, by the way, that it cannot guarantee now that Germany will get any natural gas from Russia whatsoever. Whatever they were laundering through that country, I hope it was worth it, because it is their own citizens that have paid a steep price for subsidizing this resistance that doesn't exist and never had any chance to be successful on any level whatsoever. This is, and it's destroying their own domestic economies in the process.
Let me pause and tell you about our next sponsor, and that is Patriot Mobile. With the recent rulings from the Supreme Court, it is worth mentioning that these wins for religious liberty, for freedom of speech, for freedom to defend yourself with the rights that you find in the Second Amendment did not happen on their own. It took the support of companies like Patriot Mobile, who have passionately fought on behalf of the unborn, like with the Dobbs decision, and your constitutional rights. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative mobile phone provider. They have been on the front lines fighting for your values. That is why Patriot Mobile is different from every other provider out there. Inflation has made it really hard on Americans. Thankfully, Patriot Mobile has plans for almost any budget. They offer the same nationwide coverage as all major carriers. So you get the same great service plus the knowledge that your money is going to a company fighting for the sanctity of life, religious freedom, and the Second Amendment. Go to patriotmobile.com/Allie for free activation. That's patriotmobile.com/Allie. There are so many factors here. Not only do I think that Joe Biden is serving the interests of the CCP, but I also think that he is serving the interests of the radical green activist class here in the United States, and that is part of why he is making the decisions that he is about oil. But the activist class of the green energy movement, if you want to call it that, and the goals of the CCP are actually right in line. Not when it comes to climate, because the CCP doesn't care about the climate, but the CCP does very much care about the weakening and the destabilization of the United States. And as you asked earlier, what would you do differently, especially energy policy wise, if you hated the U.S. than what Joe Biden has done? I mean, not just selling the barrels of oil to China, which is just insane to say, but everything that he has pushed in the way of energy policy. His energy secretary has admitted that we are in a transition period. This is growing pains. We should maybe just, buy a Tesla. And so this is just another example about how the green energy racket really, it's a war against the working class. That's also what we're seeing in the Netherlands right now, and even in some ways in Sri Lanka, but it is also a tool being used by the CCP to weaken the United States, which is why all of these things are connected. And Joe Biden, well, I was going to say Joe Biden is at the helm, but I'm not even sure you could say that. Someone is at the helm, and he's just kind of there, weakening at Bernie's style.
Correct. Yeah. You make an important distinction there a moment ago when you said that China doesn't care about the climate agenda, but the rest of this green energy stuff aligns with our Western World Economic Forum elites.
Yes.
And I think we should flesh that out for your audience a little bit, because at first blush, that would kind of seem to be contradictory.
Yeah.
But have you ever noticed that the green energy people in the West never criticize China as the world's largest polluter?
Right.
Per capita, the U.S. could arguably be the cleanest, technologically advanced nation on Earth. We still don't do nuclear here.
Right.
Well, by the way, the EU is so desperate, they just decided, screw you, Greta Thunberg, nuclear energy actually is green. They decided that last week because they're learning that reality on some level has to be acknowledged. But how can these two things be true? Well, it's because, it's the same reason they never criticize China as the world's biggest polluter. Because the agendas here for both are to utilize these emerging technologies and these market solutions as a means of control. All right, so right now, of the 10 used car models that have increased the most in price in the current American inflation spike, 7 of them are EVs. The absolute cheapest average EV you could buy used right now is just under $40,000. Wow. At maximum bandwidth, you can, if you wanted to take a trip. So I've got a lot of family. I live in Iowa. My other half of the family lives in Michigan. I've made this 500-mile trip back and forth between Michigan and Iowa my entire life. It's about a 7 to 9 hour drive. I could not do it possibly in one day if we had an electric car. The best would get me 300 miles a day on a highway. And then you run into the entire apparatus of trying to find the amount of infrastructure for the recharge stations that you're looking for, right, which is what a Wall Street Journal reporter recently found out. And then she gave up and decided the smell of gasoline has never smelled so good. They know all of these things. We sometimes on the right report this stuff and act as if they're, the people pushing this agenda just were unaware, did not know that the best EVs that are out there can give you 300 miles a day on an interstate on a full charge. They're doing this because they're aware of it, because this is all about control. Every aspect of this. Let's go back 15 or 12 years to Obamacare. Let's accept the premise that there really were all of these uninsurable people out there, and they're always single moms and minorities. Let's assume that's true. And let's assume that states could not do what my home state of Iowa did 20 years ago for such difficult insurable people, create a Hawkeye program with that was a public program on a state level with a high deductible but low premium so they could still buy in and get coverage. Let's assume everybody is a numbskull in the other 49 states and could never have thought of doing such a thing. Let's just assume that for a second. Well, then why didn't they just produce a federal version of that kind of a program? Why not just produce a federal version of a high deductible, low premium co-op that you can buy into from the government if you can't get insured privately? Why didn't they do? Why destabilize the entire healthcare system and make men pay for pap smears? Why do that? Because if they had just treated the actual problem they claimed existed, Allie, it wouldn't have given them the desired control that they sought. because it was never about the problem. It was about the control. And the problem was used in order to gain the control. That's why we didn't do focused protection and get to herd immunity before. And that's why we didn't do massive seroprevalence examinations of who had already had COVID before we rolled out just mass vaccination for a bunch of people that maybe didn't even need a vaccine because they already had natural antibodies. That's why we poo-pooed natural immunity, because if we had done the traditional model that sustained us as a species for thousands of years through hundreds of plagues, it wouldn't have given them the control. That's the same reason they're pushing you to this technology. They know it is inefficient. They know you will starve. They know you will eat the bugs and you will like it. You will own nothing. You will be blissful. They know all of this. They're not dumb. They're not stupid. They're not fools. They're doing it on purpose. These are always in order to gain control.
And thinking about all of this, amen, by the way, in light of all of that, I mean, I constantly am thinking back to the election and how some of the claims that have been made, that have been dismissed, that have been censored aren't quite as far-fetched as some people originally thought. I mean, when you think about all the powers that were banking on someone like Joe Biden, or specifically Joe Biden, as weak as he is, as compromised as he is, taking power, do you really think these forces who are okay with depopulation and actually hell-bent on destabilization, that they would stop at any, like they have any limiting principle when it comes to putting the people in power that they want to put? Now, I don't know. I mean, Time Magazine did write about this at the time, that the tech giants and the big corporations and the mainstream media and big time billionaires and donors all did come together to try to ensure that Trump didn't get reelected. And so there is that is actually a provable thing that happened. And now you're saying, though, that, okay, Joe Biden, I guess, has extended, or he's basically expired his usefulness. His usefulness has expired. And so what do you think the consequence is then of this? If these people are really that ruthless and they're that bent on their agenda, and Joe Biden is no longer a tool that they can use anymore, like what comes of all of this?
I want to go back to the election cycle since you went there, but I want to go even earlier than election night with the drop boxes that now the Wisconsin State Supreme Court has ruled are illegal and should have never been utilized. I mean, whenever you want to suspect someone of a crime, you have to ask 3 questions about, did they have the means, the motive, and the opportunity in order to pull it off? And they had all 3 of those things. They certainly had the motive. They certainly had the means. We were in lockdowns. It was unsafe to go out. So they certainly had that. And then they had the opportunity, of course, because they controlled the entire apparatus, the media, everything. I remember the calls from one of my best friends who was on the Trump advance team sent to Pennsylvania to monitor the vote. And he was standing right outside one of the main vote counting hubs there in Philadelphia County in the heart of the city. And against state law, he's texting me while this is going on live. They're boarding up and blackening windows against state law so that him and his unit cannot actually monitor the vote count. So yeah, all 3 boxes would be there for such a crime to be committed. But we could even go back even earlier to the primary itself. And I've never seen anything like this ever in American history. In a 72-hour period prior to Super Tuesday, out of nowhere, a finger, like a Thanos finger, was snapped. And out of nowhere, Joe Biden went from a dead carcass politically on the side of the road to winning everything. States he never visited and never campaigned in, never did an event in, where he wasn't even being polled in. And he's just rolling everything on Super Tuesday. Why? Because they understood that if they did not do this, Bernie Sanders was going to be the nominee. And he's more than a socialist. He's an actual Soviet. People were never going to vote for him. And they were going to lose out on this opportunity. What is the opportunity, by the way? It wasn't defeating Donald Trump. That's a symptom. And really, the issue with Trump is you. They hate you. And they see him. That's Trump's crime. That's why Trump went from one of the biggest celebrities in the world to persona non grata, is because he actually aligned with serving people like the ones watching and listening to us right now. That's the real issue. The real opportunity here was, there is one last holdout in the Western world left that is not on a complete, from not just institutional, but granular level, where even the people want this, the people will comply with it. that will go along with this agenda that essentially ends Western civilization as we've known it. And it's us. We're the last ones. We're the last ones. The church is greatly diminished in our culture, but it is still far more influential than it is in any other Western country. We own 200 million guns. Dutch farmers don't. Okay.
Right.
And so because of that, there was an opportunity here to use this to do an end run around the church and around the Second Amendment to once and for all use a quote unquote emergency to condition you to think because of the emergency, I have to fork over my common sense and all my freedoms and liberties so you will protect me from said emergency. That was the opportunity here for you to be forever groomed to take whatever talking point or next current thing or policy or position on anything. Anything. I mean, you can see what you're talking about. I know a lot of suburban women listen to your show. How many of you that are in that group know friends that did the following two-step, the following evolution in their social media accounts, right? It began with a mask. And then it went to a vaccine card. And then it went to pronouns in their bio. And then it went to a Ukraine flag.
Yeah.
A lot of you do. That's because they've been conditioned spiritually by the spirit of the age. Literally, their mouths are agape, just waiting for the latest. They're awaiting further instructions. This is the next download of what we are for, what you have been conditioned to accept. And that's the opportunity here, was a chance to finish this country off as the last remaining outlier in the West to this agenda.
All right, next sponsor is Healthy Cell. Have you ever wondered if those vitamins you're taking every day are actually working for you? More than 240 million Americans take supplements daily in pill form, but they usually don't get the promised results because they don't absorb the nutrients properly. That's why you need a new technology that is found in Healthy Cell. They use an ingestible gel that not only tastes great, but has 165% more absorption than pills. The old-fashioned tablets and the capsules that a lot of us have taken for a long time contain synthetic other ingredients like binding glues, fillers, coatings that can actually irritate the lining of your stomach and don't work toward maximum absorption. So try Healthy Cell. Their microgel technology is made of nutrient particles that are ultra absorbable, that are inside the natural gel that really makes this work. So go to healthycell.com/Allie. Use code Allie at checkout for 20% off your first order. That's healthycell.com/Allie. So then what happens from here on out? Do you think if Republicans take the majority in November that they are going to file articles of impeachment?
I think that we are not a nation of laws, and we never have been.
Yeah.
We are a nation of political will, and we always will be. We will get the tyranny we comply with, no matter who wins elections. And the problem, and this is what has really bothered me when I had to come to this conclusion the last few years, because for a long time, I wanted to believe it was the establishment or the swamp. These things are all terrible. Okay, they're all terrible. But if I leave my front door open to my home and a nefarious character takes advantage of that and invades my home, takes my stuff, and assaults my family, are they still a terrible person? Of course, they're responsible for their actions. But what the hell kind of fool left his front door unlocked? Let him do it. The people are the problem. And that's the reality. The people are the problem. And when I say the people, I'm not even talking about the folks I was just mentioning with their mouths agape awaiting further instructions. I'm talking about our own people. And the number one reason we're the problem is because the number one heresy in the church today is the doctrine of non-confrontation. Yeah. That even when the Bible is preached, it is preached in a non-confrontational way, so you remain comfortable in your sins, and therefore your unsaved neighbor remain comfortable in theirs too, because you don't live any differently than them. You're not challenged any more than them. Everybody's comfortable. Yeah. No one, and by the way, confrontation, I'm a fairly aggressive person. It doesn't have to be aggressive. I don't know, my Nana in between Pall Malls and Honey Buns and she weighed $105. She could just flash me a look and I'm like, I'm sorry, Grandma. Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all up in your grill. I kind of like it when it is, but it doesn't have to be. Jesus is confronting a sinful world, Allie, as an adorable baby in a manger, every bit as much as he is on a white horse with a robe dipped in blood and a sword in his mouth. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not a methodology. It's a motivation. We won't confront at all. We won't speak up when Aunt Petunia runs her mouth again with a bunch of NBC raw sewage at Thanksgiving. We won't do it, okay? And I can tell everyone in your audience right now, every history book ever written, here's who loses. Don't use my name. I don't want to lose my job. Loses in every history book ever written. I didn't want to make it awkward. Loses in every history book ever written. Not really my place to say anything. Loses in every history book ever written. I just want to be left alone. Loses in every history book ever written. You see a pattern here? Okay.
Yeah.
And so we are fighting for some, détente. The other side is the mob outside of Lot's house. It will not be stopped. It will not be contained. It will not be satiated. It has to be defeated in the arena of ideas. And we often won't even step into that arena. I mean, we're sitting around waiting for Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis to maybe get sworn in 2.5 years from now. 2.5 years ago, if I would have told your audience, I'd have come on here and said, stock up on toilet paper because you never know when you'll run out. I'd have looked like a nutbag, and that actually happened. They can do a lot of damage in 2.5 years. We got to start getting real comfortable being uncomfortable. And I know that a lot of your audience is nodding your head and then thinking of their own husbands and their passivity. And that's what's killing us more than anything. The amount of videos I got sent to me during the lockdowns of homeschool moms or Christian moms who would dare to test the waters and walk into a Rite Aid or a Costco without a mask. And then some creepy dude with 6 of them would corner them. And I'd always ask myself, where are their husbands? Where and I don't want to hear any more from the bro dudes with the 42-inch pythons listening to Joe Rogan every day who are like, yeah, man, Civil War, brah. And then they made sure to mask up their little princess before they took her, to the grocery store. The men are the problem. The men are the issue. And you can always tell the condition of a culture by the condition of its men. And our men have been passively worn down to the nub. And it often starts in the church, where they have been taught the doctrine of non-confrontation by sweater-vested and pleated khaki guy who wouldn't be a threat to hell if he could point Ukraine out on a map.
Yeah. It probably does go back to also what I think is the feminization of Jesus and worship music and the entire church experience that is actually catered towards what women like. We like the pastel colors, we like the mood lighting, we like the emotional lights, we like the tone of the pastor that is careful not to tread on any feelings. That's how women are created. It does not cater to men, and it forces men to basically conform to kind of like a feminine mode of worship and makes them think that holiness means femininity. That's certainly not true of all pastors in all churches by any means, but I think it is true in a lot of churches, and not even just progressive churches, but churches who say that they're apolitical or even theologically conservative. They have also kind of given into that. So that really goes to the underneath of all of this, and it kind of links us back to the entire Hunter Biden debacle and the problem with Joe Biden and of course being compromised. But when you look at Hunter Biden, he of course is an example, an extreme example, but an example of how far American masculinity has fallen. And wow, you can get away with so much as long as you are part of the kind of immune class of powerful people. And I don't think that we have seen all of the chickens come home to roost when it comes to Hunter Biden and the CCP and the green energy and everything that we are talking about. All right, last sponsor for the day is Annie's Kit Clubs. You want to make sure that when your kids are indoors this summer, they're not outside, they're not at the swimming pool, they're not playing sports or they're not at the summer camps or summer school that you've put them in, you want to make sure that they're still spending their time in a way that is productive and constructive, and they're not just atrophying their mind in front of their iPad or the TV all afternoon. So you need Annie's Kit Clubs. It's an awesome deal. Every month they send you a new shipment with all the special supplies and instructions you need or your kid needs to make a project. So they've got craft kits, they've got young builders woodworking kits, they've got STEM projects that your kids can engage in. It's perfect for kids ages 7 to 12. They've also got a Creative Women's Club. If you're crafty yourself, you can get the subscription. They send these crafts each month right to your front door, emphasizing to your kids the importance of creativity and continuing to learn new things. All subscriptions are month to month. You can cancel at any time. Go to annieskitclubs.com/Allie. Get your first month 75% off. That's annieskitclubs.com/Allie for that discount. annieskitclubs.com/Allie. All right, give us the last word.
The last word is one of the best summations of everything you just said I've ever heard is from Christine Pushaw. She is Ron DeSantis's messaging guru, and she is she's a stud.
Yeah,
okay. I've never seen anything like her on the right. Okay. I mean, she's like Roy Hobbs. She is the natural. Okay. And when she points out about what you just said, it's not hypocrisy. It is hierarchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're better than you. Bow before Zod. You need to eat the bugs. We need to fly private.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're better than you. You serve us. This isn't a government by the consent of the governed. All right. You are plebes and you will like it. You will eat the bugs. You will own nothing. You will be blissful. You will comply. What's happened in our society now is the highest virtue in American society isn't Gordon Gekko, greed is good, competition. It's not merit. Bruce Jenner's not a decathlete anymore. We don't know what he's the bearded lady act now. It's not truth. It's not compassion. It's not grace. No, the highest virtue in American culture now is compliance. How do I show I am compliant with the spirit of the age, with the next current thing? And this is why we need the men. That spirit in your sons where they got that little wild-eyed look. And some days you're like, yeah, I remember when he was adorable, but now I kind of think, he might do something that scares me. Yes. Yes. What we need to do is now hone that instinct into something holy and righteous so that you're not scared of him. They are.
Yeah.
And our sons, they're not scared of our sons, and they're not scared of our husbands, and they're not scared of our dads. And until that changes, they ain't going to be scared of you.
Yeah, amen. That's a really good point. Well, thank you as always for the insight that you give like no one else does. I encourage everyone to go follow you, listen to your podcast, buy your many books. Your most recent one is Do What You Believe, which has a lot to do with what we're talking about today. So thank you so much, Steve. Have a great show today.
God bless. Same to you guys. You do a great job as well, Allie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.